You guys, how are you doing on this lovely Friday for Fridays with Franco? We are here at Vatican Studios.
Yes, we are.
HQ. On another beautiful Friday, and we are here to do some wand talk. Hello, Franco.
Are we live?
We are
right.
live.
Alrighty here. Oh yeah, let me grab that real quick. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Another episode with Bishop. We are going to be talking today live about which wand is right for you. We've had tons of questions about which wand would be right for me, for my style, black and gray, portrait, you name it. So, we come from a world, most of us come from a world of using a bunch of different coils for different jobs, right? So like a coil for lining, a coil for black and gray, a coil for packing color. So we're used to a psychology of using different machines to get the job done. And then when rotary machines started getting popular, especially around 2010, 2011, it started to be a psychology of, oh, I can use, one machine for everything. And, I was one of those people that could do that. There's plenty of people that could do that. But even myself, I found sometimes I was lacking a little power, or I wanted something to hit a little softer for a particular piece I was doing. So it sort of set me out on this journey of, can you really do everything with one rotary? And the answer is this. For some people, you can. For some people. For others, if you're particular and you have a particular style, a hand speed, a depth, something that your style of tattooing, then, it's going to be tough to find one style of tattooing because there's different styles of tattooing. There's let's talk about like smooth black and gray, some David Vega smooth black and gray, where you got the creamiest creamy grays. Then let's talk about a Nico Hurtado. You have realistic solid color packing, right? And then you have guys, like Big Sleeps, guys that are doing lining and lettering, and they want lettering and line work. And then you have the black workers out there, right? So each of those styles, most of you know that, most of you tattoo artists out there know that all of those styles I just described, they can't all be approached the same way. Some, the needle depth has to be less or more. For some, the hand speed, remember we talked about XYZ factor, right? So for some, the hand speed's going to be a little bit faster or slower. Your whip shading could be different. So look, it's you're a mountain climber, and there's different size mountains to climb. There's different elements to weather, right? They're not all created equal. Just because you can climb that mountain with that gear doesn't mean you can climb that mountain in that temperature with that gear. So today we're going to talk specifically about the wands, but we're going to also talk about a little bit of philosophy of why certain machines behave different that attach to someone's particular style. And it's this is a fun topic. This is kind of a question that we get asked the most. Which one do I use? Not even just with the wand. Which V6 do I use? Which stroke do I use? So before we begin, let's talk about a couple of elements that cater to what this conversation is going to really be about. And that is the why. Why are there different machines? What's inside of them? So to make it simple, you have some machines that have a powerful motor. You have some machines that have a faster RPM, right? We'll talk about what that is here in a second. And then you have, machines that have a strong, kind of like a stroke, torque combination, and that's kind of what we're doing here with the wand. We're combining different elements. In the wine world, you pair like a certain red wine with a certain red meat, or a certain white wine with a certain fish, right? So you pair certain things together to get, a good approach. And that's really the secret to the wands and our philosophy here with machine making is, for so many years we custom made machines for different people. So even though we offered a V6, sometimes somebody would want it a specific way, or same with the Fantom or the Micro Angelo. And so with the wand, we just wanted to present three different options that are specific. So some of you have all three wands. Everyone that has all three wands that messages us, they specifically can feel the difference. It's not like they all hit the same and they're confused and they don't know which one. No, they specifically hit different, and anyone who's used them can tell the difference. We'll start off with the shader. Shader has a soft motor. What do I mean by soft? Well, here's what I mean by soft. Torque, right? I'll compare it to horsepower on an engine. So somebody's bragging, that they got, a V10 engine, then someone comes along and says, I got a V12, I got more horsepower. That means it's got more power, more torque. With motors, it's the same way. So there's a rating. So each motor that you buy from the motor company, for example, when I go to make custom motors with the motor company, I get to design the power, the RPM, anything I want. So with the shader, we have a softer torque motor. Okay, so that means it hits a little softer. Still has a lot of power. So don't get this little guy confused here. This will still outline and shade, for some people. But it's got a soft motor. It has a 3.5 cam. So going back to the psychology of pairing the right X and Y, soft motor with a 3.5 cam, say versus a 4.2 or a 5.0, which we'll get into here in a second. But 3.5 is a shorter stroke. So shorter strokes are known to be better for black and gray. And 3.5 isn't really a short stroke. I mean, you got machines out there with a 2mm stroke, which I personally don't believe in. 2.5, that's even pushing it, right? But so 3.5 is not necessarily a short stroke, but it's a shorter stroke than the ones we have to offer. I believe that the 3.5 is the lowest stroke that I would ever want to offer, because it doesn't snag in the skin, doesn't have too much power, especially when paired with the right motor, and the RPM is nice. So you got a certain amount of RPM. This one's about 7,600 RPM. For those of you that don't know what RPM is, it's rounds per minute. So how many times does that motor spin around per minute? For example, you don't want a machine that spins 10,000 RPM or 12,000 RPM. They exist, right? And sometimes people will build machines not knowing about the motor, and they're cutting people up. So this one's 7,600 RPM at 9 volts. It's a 9-volt motor, and 3.5 cam, which means it hits pretty decently soft, yet has still some power to move fast. And yeah, this is what this motor has. So it's softer. We'll take all the questions regarding the various machines, but softer motor, shorter hit or shorter stroke, and the motor has 7,600 RPMs. We'll sort of talk about what that means in more detail. Then we have the Packer. Packer has a brushless motor, powerful Faulhaber. They all have Faulhaber motors in it, and this bad boy is powerful. It's got about, I'm going to say about 30 to 40% more torque than the shader, right? So it's got 30% more power. It's got the 4.2 stroke. 4.2 stroke, that'll slam some color in the skin. It'll do line work as well, especially if you're really familiar with rotary machines. So you got a 4.2 stroke. It's got more hit. It's got more torque. The RPMs at 9 volts on this one are about 8,500 to 9,000. So that's why we recommend using the Packer, starting off at about 5.5, 6, 6.5 volts, whereas a shader, you want to start this off at around 8 volts, maybe go up to 9. So this has a little bit more power, right? This right here could be good for line work, for packing color, even for color portraits. Like Nico uses the 4.2. A couple of other friends that do color portrait work use a 4.2 with a little bit more powerful motor, because you got to have that power to drive in that color. Some of that color pigment's really thick, and you don't want to have to keep going over it, especially when you're doing color. Like some people would say, it's got a powerful hit, so isn't that going to scar the skin, or isn't that going to mess the skin up? It's actually the opposite, if you know what you're doing, because when you put the skin, when you drive that needle to the perfect depth in the skin, it'll deliver the load of pigment exactly how it's supposed to be a perfectly saturated tattoo. If you have a weaker motor or a weaker machine and it doesn't go deep, or sometimes with coils, then you got to go over that area one more time the right way, the right depth. So now that particular area of skin, it's not only getting hit once, but it's getting hit twice. So the first time, it got some of the ink. The second pass, it got more of the ink, but you've kind of sort of damaged that area a little bit more. So use the right way. A machine with a little bit more torque and a bigger stroke can actually have the tattoo heal faster and be less trauma on the skin. We'll talk a little bit more about this sucker here in a second. Then we have the liner. James, do I dare talk about the liner?
Ooh,
how about some of that Palo Santo right there? Some of that sage.
Get that going for you right away.
Can you give them some of that too, James?
I will.
He's being stingy right now.
Hard.
Tom, can you believe that right now? Come on, share the Palo Santo with the world. You know, it's crazy times right now, so we got to cleanse ourselves over here. James, come on now.
Here we go.
Sorry, I'm taking some ayahuasca too. We're about to have a ceremony because we're going deep, like I promised. I'm just kidding, Tom. This is not ayahuasca. That's later tonight. So last but not least, you have the liner. If this could be compared to a boxer, maybe it's like Mike Tyson, right? It's got a powerful punch. Whereas this is Bruce Lee. He's got a lightning fast strike, and it'll deliver the 1-inch death punch. So, with that being said, this has the same powerful motor as the Packer. It's got a 5.0 stroke. So what does that mean? I'll give you a quick example. I always use the analogy of a midget softball player and a girl with long, tall arms. If they're clocking that rotation of their arm before they let go of that ball, if that arm is spinning, let's just say 100 RPMs, right? So not any faster. The midget, the tall girl, 100 RPMs. When the midget lets go of that ball, it's going to travel with less velocity and it's going to fall down sooner. Whereas the tall girl, it's going to send it out further with more velocity, and it'll go further than the first ball. The thing is something called inertia. I don't want to bore you with technical words, but inertia basically is the buildup of power, right? So the buildup of power before you take an action, right? So for Bruce Lee, he was building up the chi, right? And then he would deliver that punch, and it had all that power built into his fist. So when he delivered that punch and hit the target, it was a lot harder. So this is the first ever 5.0 stroke in a pen style machine. There's maybe 1 or 2 5.0 stroke machines on the market that are hard to get a hold of, and I don't even know if they exist anymore. But they said it couldn't be done. You can't. I had other machine builders. You can't do a 5.0 in a pen machine. We've tried. It's impossible. It's not impossible. We've had this out for about a year now, and everyone loves it that has used this for lining and some black work. So it's got a 5.0 stroke. So now you're pairing it, again, going back to pairing, and that's a sort of Bishop's secret strategy. And yes, we've been copied, but let me tell you one thing. I learned the art of pairing the motors and the torque and the RPM and the stroke length. That was through years of tattooing with rotary machines, 27 years of tattooing with rotary machines. So I want you guys to know that this pairing, this idea, this psychology of pairing the right stroke, that's something we're honing in, and we've honed in well before anyone else has really dedicated the psychology to it. And a lot of, and this isn't derogatory to any machine builders, because there's some brilliant ones out there. There's quite a few, but you can't just buy a motor off the shelf. You can't just pick a stroke off the shelf. Let's go 3. Let's go 2.5. Let's go 3. Let's go 4, and make a machine and sell it, and really tell your customer truly what it could be good for. You can't do that. You can't. I've seen people make machines and say this will do it all. There's thousands, right, James? You check the messages. There's thousands of artists that would disagree with that. So this isn't even my philosophy. I'm just talking about it. But there's artists out there that swear they can't line with a rotary until they've tried the liner. Joseph is one of them. Our good friend Joseph. Plenty of our friends. Sleeps. And You know, a lot of people couldn't line with a rotary until they tried the 5.0 stroke paired with a powerful motor. Doesn't matter that it's in a pen style machine. If this pairing was to take place in our V6 or our Michelangelo, it'd be the same results. But they said it couldn't be done, and I like challenges. So 5.0, it's a liner. I don't suggest using this for black and gray. It's got a powerful hit. I don't even suggest using it for color because if you don't really know what you're doing, you could damage the skin with this machine, particularly if you try to use it for something else. It could be done. If you know anyone that's done it, it could be done, but we don't suggest it. It's like, the same way I wouldn't tell my son to drive a Ferrari to Las Vegas going 150 miles an hour. I would say take the Land Rover and drive 80 miles an hour. So just because you can do it doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. So that's a little quick explanation of the three machines. I'm gonna say one more thing about these three. For those of you that can do everything with one machine, we always recommend the Packer. If you are out there listening in right now and you're wondering which machine is right for you, send us a DM. I'll personally take a look at your portfolio and I'll give you my opinion. We've done that hundreds of times. I actually enjoy doing it. It's fun for me. And we'll answer any questions that you send. Either DM me, DM Bishop, or send us Messenger on Facebook. But nonetheless, if we don't get to your question today, we will get back to you on that too. And as always, we appreciate and we're grateful for the opportunity to share my knowledge with you guys. I'm unpacking 27 years of experience of tattooing, but not just that. As a machine builder, building my first rotaries as far back as 27 years ago, and really dedicating time to building machines in 2006, 2007, up until today even. And I've learned a lot along the way. And I'll be the first to say I'm not cool. It's not me. I'm not the smart guy in the room. I've learned everything from you guys. I've learned everything from my peers. So I'm just a recorder of it. I'm just a note taker of it. Then I go back to the lab and I take all this data and I take all this information, as well as my own when I'm tattooing. And collectively, I would like to say that most of our products are a collective consciousness of what you guys want, what I want, with what my partner Carlos Torres wants. We're picky, right? For those of you that have seen my work, I started off using single needle, so I'm very particular. I try to be as meticulous as I can. So I need the tools to work for me. Ever since I started making machines, I personally have used certain ones for certain jobs. Personally, since I do black and gray, I enjoy the shader a lot. If I'm doing more of a hardcore black area that I need to punch in a lot of saturation, then I'll probably use the Packer to get that part done. But when it comes to finessing and getting that really soft transition, little more forgiveness, I'll use the Packer. So, but yeah, in general, there's a lot to know, and let's go ahead and get in some questions, James.
Yeah, well, let's also let everybody know at home, if you guys have any questions about the wand, please list your questions here in the comments. We're going to start answering a few of them. We've got our friend Ked Serfina asking, if you were to line with each of the wands, what would be the voltage you would run them at respectively?
Okay, good question. Very good question. So, I always use my good friend Aaron Delavedova out of Guru Tattoo down in San Diego. Awesome guy. Oh, and he happens to be a killer tattoo artist, but he's really awesome guy. And he's been using the Fantom, which has the same motor as this guy, and he's been slamming 14 round liners. I mean, if you've seen Aaron's work, it's bold color, really cool style. So we've had several people that use this motor, essentially this machine, to deliver some serious damage in terms of heavy line weight. 14 round liners, 11 round liners, 9 round liners, no problem. It's more for people that are familiar with rotary machines. You know how to get past the finicky small details that maybe other people are still learning. But for that, voltage is everything. Voltage is key. What I'm saying only applies to the right voltage. So when you're hitting like let's just say a 1209 round liner, you want to bump this up to about 10 volts. If you're doing like a 14 round liner, 10 volts, maybe 10.5 volts. Whereas when you're shading soft and black and gray with this machine, you'll bring it back down to 8 or 9. Okay, so with this motor, it's also pretty peculiar in a fun way, because this particular motor, it's interesting because the curve of the torque goes up significantly when you increase the voltage. So what do I mean by that is at 8 volts, it's got some power, right? But it's also got less torque than these other machines. When you increase it to 9, 9.5, 10, it really kicks up the torque. So now it becomes a more powerful motor. Remember, velocity. The faster it's spinning, the more energy it's pulling with it, right? So if this motor was rated to have, like, let's just say a torque rating of, like, let's just say 10. They call it millinewton meters, but don't bore yourself with that. But for those that want to research, millinewton meters is how they measure the torque. Kind of like you weigh diamonds by the carat, you weigh people and drugs by the pound. So torque is rated in and measured in millinewton meters, MNM. So if a motor comes with, let's just say a motor comes with 10 millinewton meters, right? What that means is it only applies at the voltage that motor is designed for. So they call that a nominal voltage. So if I go and buy a motor, right, let's just say this motor. When I made this motor, I picked a 9 volt motor. That's the nominal voltage. That means this is made to be a 9 volt motor, okay? It's got 7,600 RPM, and let's just say it has about 10 millinewton meters. What happens is when you increase it to 10 volts, it's no longer 10 millinewton meters. It's more like around 11.5, 12. So the power becomes more the more you increase it. Now there's such a thing as having your machine spin too high, and I would say don't have your shader go any higher than 10.5 volts. Don't have your packer or liner go any higher than 9 volts, and yeah, that'll be the thing. With the packer, to answer your question, you want to use this around 6 volts. I always say start off at 6 volts. That's pretty much the favorite speed for everyone. Maybe 5.5, maybe 6.5, depending on your hand speed, whether it be in soft or slow or fast. Liner, same thing. 6 volts, maybe 5.5, maybe 6.5, again, depending on your hand speed, slow or fast. Hopefully that answered your question.
That definitely answers our question. We've got our friend Fab Darian1, Dare1 is asking, could you compare the difference between the shader wand and the Fantom rotary? What would be the difference between those two machines? Because they have comparable motors.
Good question. So the shader wand is kind of like our Fantom in a pen style. The only difference is the movement of the plunger bar is more exact on this one. So if you go to a Fantom to this machine, it's got the same exact motor, 3.5 stroke, and so the difference is the drive system and the way that this plunger bar reacts when it hits the plunger bar of the needle, the cartridge needle. It's more vertical, it's more stable. So for those of you that love the Fantom, when you guys have got a hold of this one, we've always gotten people going, wow, it's like a very tight version of the Fantom. So hit's the same, RPM's the same, torque's the same, everything's the same. Just more finite.
Awesome. Let's see. Our friend Justin Lawler just got his packer in today. Congratulations, my friend. Thank you for the support there. Wants to have, do you have any suggestions or tips as far as voltage that you would run starting off with to do some black and gray work with the packer?
Okay, so yeah, people do excellent black and gray work with the packer. You know, guys like Cartoon, you know, David Vega even will use it sometimes, and we have Troshin, we have Ricardo Avila, Lexus Vatate. A lot of people do smooth black and gray with the packer, so it can be done for sure. And you can pretty much do anything and everything with either one of these machines, but it's more for particular people. So that's why it's important for us to really understand your style before we suggest a machine. But a lot of you already kind of know if you lead more towards a packer or a shader. Yeah, this is yeah, all in one. It's going to be really boils down to your style and what you're capable of doing. Yeah, what you're capable of doing. Yeah.
Okay. Our friend Remco Gazan is asking, well, he's got more of a kind of a statement, but wants to know probably your feedback. He thinks that the liner wand is especially more for the old school guys who want to achieve a line in one pass.
Yeah.
Feel?
Okay, so it's kind of like it's true to a certain degree. So, for example, if you're an old school guy and you have a coil machine and you don't like lining with coil machines, then you're not going to want it. You're not going to want to use a rotary machine that doesn't work the same as a coil. So a lot of coil guys that are just old school, or even not even so much old school, but some guys that think they can't line with a rotary machine, they're using coils. When they get a hold of a liner, they notice that it hits hard and it's able to deliver a line in the skin perfectly, just like that. So it's an old school thing to a degree, but it really is more so, I can't line with the rotary, I need help, what do I do? I'm used to this old school way or this old school method, yeah.
We got people asking, and we'll just go ahead, and Sean Grimes wants to know, when is the El Chapo wand going to be available?
That bad boy, and I say bad boy because it's a bad boy, is going to be available probably in about, Hernan dropped off.
He just dropped them all off.
A little stash.
Here's one for an example, and I think we got another one right here. We got two of the different versions that will be available.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is nice. How many of you have seen our
I think they want a
2-inch grip?
The people at home want to
come on over here and check this out, and we'll answer that question and talk about some stuff here. So El Chapo's probably going to be for sale in about 2 weeks. We have to build them, and we're going to have two versions. One's a fully engraved. The other one's just got the engraved spline. Stay tuned for pricing. Again, shout out to Mr. Hernan from Engrave It. But these things are sexy. Now check this out too. We have a 2-inch grip on our. Actually, is it on right now?
Not quite yet, but I think we will.
Okay, these two are coming. So we got fatter grips in aluminum, and of course, disposable. Look at this thing. This thing's heavy. So these are the two El Chapos that'll be available. Look at these suckers. Ooh wee. Which one are you going to do? Which one is right for you? Speaking of, this one or this one? Yeah, I'm looking forward to this right here.
So be on the lookout, you guys. We will be making the announcement via social media on the release of those, and make sure you act fast because
they'll be gone probably within 2 hours at the very most.
I think that seems to be about the MO with those.
Yeah, and we only have like how many, James? What?
We did 28 of them this first batch. So
keep the questions coming about the machines in general, or if you have any questions on, again, which one's right for you, send us a DM or try to hit us here too.
Well, speaking of our next question, our friend Lassiter Quinones, would the 3.5 V6 be comparable to the shader wand, or would you say the Packer?
Okay, I would say 3.5 V6 is going to be more compatible. So any of our V6s, any of them, are going to be compatible to the Packer. Not the liner, not the shader, literally the Packer. So if you find yourself liking the V6, you'll move right into the Packer. It has the same amount of torque that the Packer has. It does not have the same amount of torque and power that the shader has. And again, our V6s are available in 3.5 and 4.2 strokes. So this being a 5.0 stroke, it doesn't really even compare to that. So V6, and this is a good question. So V6 compares to the Packer. Microangelo compares to in between the Packer and the shader, right? The Fantom compares to the shader. So if you're looking for a kind of a quick reference on that note, that is what it is.
All right, yeah, you just answered our friend Francisco Cortez question, was the Microangelo versus the Packer shader, which, so you just answered that one there.
So real quick, let me go deep on that because I
Absolutely.
said something that I have to dive deeper on. I said the Microangelo is in between the Packer and shader. That's kind of confusing, right? So let me help you clarify that, or let me clarify that to help you. If you're a Microangelo user that loves black and gray and you primarily use the Microangelo for black and gray or fine line, then I would suggest a shader. If you're a Michelangelo user and you're doing like color, heavy line work, you're primarily finding yourself using the 4.2 magnetic cam, definitely use the Packer. So.
Okay, our friend Paul Dabrowski, he's got, go ahead.
And if you're one that uses both, because there are you out there that does both, then you want the Packer.
All right. Paul Dabrowski is asking, he's got the liner wand for about a year. You know, you suggest not more than 9 volts, but yet our brother Aston Reynolds runs it higher than 9, and does it damage the motor? He uses it at about 6.5, and he feels he needs to slow it down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful motor. I always suggest altering your hand speed over kicking up the voltage on a machine, because the reason why people kick up voltage on a machine is because they have faster hand speed, so it has to compensate. For example, if you love a 10 volt or a 9, if you love a 9 volt, you can get that same effect just slowing your hand speed down about 10%, 15%. But again, these motors are Faulhaber, they're expensive, and they're probably the best miniature motors in the world. Most of the high-end medical community uses them. Most of the robotics world uses them. I wish they were cheaper, and they're not. Some of these motors can cost well over $100 just for the motor. So, with that being said, you want to make sure that you take good care of them. Don't hook them up to shitty power supplies. They're just not good. You'll hear the fluctuation in your motor. It's really messing up the current. It could potentially fry. It could potentially fry the brushes over time, or if you have a brushless motor, it could mess up some of the software in there. But yeah, in general, you just want to make sure that you don't mess up your machine. And one of the easiest ways to do that is, well, there's 2 ways. Don't let your apprentice, because it's always the apprentice that squirted ink and water, alcohol and maticide all over.
Threw it away.
Yeah. It's always the apprentice. It's never the artist that does that. Right, James? Never.
Never.
It's always my apprentice fucked up my machine.
I apologize in advance.
Yeah, so you don't want to wet the motor, okay? Just like you don't want to wet your iPhone. And the second way you could mess the motor up is cranking it too high for too long, right? These motors are created to have a specific draw. Like, you'll be able to use them at a specific voltage, no problem. And so, like on the Packer and the liner, yeah, you could use it at 10 volts. You could, for sure. Remember, every motor is rated with a certain amount of hours, right? And it could be 10,000 hours, right? So the higher you use your machine, the more wear and tear because of more RPMs. It's spinning around more RPMs, right? So you got to keep that in mind. It's not a bad thing, though. You're talking about 10% less life if you're a hardcore 10 volter or a 9 volter. If you're in the 9 volt, 10 volt gang, you can still tattoo and have his machine, no problem, a year. But you don't want to go past like 11. That's really sending a lot of current through your motor. And it's like us. Like we're not made to speed up in this world either. So just keep it in a mellow range, under 10, under 11 for sure if it's a Packer or a liner. If it's a shader, definitely under 10, 10 and a half, 11. Yeah, so hope that helps some of you guys, because I know some of you guys are wild.
We got a good question here again from our brother Remco, always coming up with these good ones here. He has a Cheyenne power unit with a converter cable to run his wands. Do you think it diminishes the wand's power?
No, it's just a conversion, especially with Cheyenne. They make high-end electrical products. So it's still all about the clean power, right? So it's just a converter that converts, I think, a phono jack. They have an 1/8" phono jack that converts it to an RCA, or to fit on an RCA machine. So no, that's just a converter, an adapter.
Okay, I think you may address this earlier, but our friend Alex Mesa is asking, are you able to use the shader wand for color packing? I think you used Aaron Delafield.
Yeah, so you can do that for sure. I would just crank it at 9 volts minimum, maybe 9.5 or 10. There's people out there that do it, no problem. It's not so good at 7 volts or 7.5. It just needs a little bit more power. And also too, you might find yourself being able to do it no problem, but you can definitely do it faster with the Packer. because it goes in faster because it's got more power behind it. You know what I mean? So it's all about delivering that needle inside the skin to the perfect depth, pulling the perfect pigment load, right? I use this philosophy all the time. This is a good one to kind of mentally think about. You take a square inch of skin, right? And let's just say to get that skin to be perfectly black, like a perfectly executed black tribal square, it takes a certain amount of penetrations. Let's just call it 1,000 microdots, right? Let's just say, or let's call it 10,000 microdots. So it takes 10,000 needles to go in at the perfect space in distance from each other, delivering the perfect load of pigment into the perfect depth. Not too shallow, not too deep. So if you always think about that square inch needing to be perfect with 10,000 perfect penetrations, right? What happens if it's 5,000? James, if it's 5,000, it's going to be lighter, right?
Yes, sir.
What if it's 20,000? It's going to be. You think it'll scar?
Just a little bit, maybe.
So if it's 20,000, that means they worked the skin twice as much as they needed to, right?
A lot more.
Yeah. Not to mention blowout. Not to mention scar. So keep that in mind sometimes, like when you're tattooing. Even when you're tattooing, I'm going to get more into philosophy. You'll hear me say this throughout our videos. Tattooing excellent is more related to philosophy than talent or technique. You got to have the technique, you got to have the talent, but if you don't have the right philosophy, you won't be able to tattoo like a master. What is philosophy? It's what's going on in the mental. It's what's going on up here while you're tattooing. A perfect example of that is a not so good tattoo. But if you look on, if you guys can do this. You can find a tattoo on Instagram that's not good. It could be a black and gray piece. But then you scan that tattoo and you see some smooth grays here and there, or you see some saturated blacks here and there. So you know that person knows how to perform smooth grays, saturate pure blacks, but something's going on in the mental. He can't put it together. He can't get the recipe out, right? So that's what I'm going to be teaching a lot of. Sometimes it's just conditioning your mind to be more mindful, to be more patient. I'll teach you guys more techniques on how to observe and learn, breathing techniques. There's so much more that goes into a perfect tattoo than you would think. Like I always use David Vega because one of the biggest things in the world to me is patience, and he is my number one favorite artist that exercises patience as it should be. And so it's like you see an artist do this piece. You can watch David do a tattoo, and it comes out great, and you don't know what the fuck he did. He can even show you his techniques, and you go and take him home, and you kind of did a better tattoo, but you still can't do it like him. There's a reason for that. You don't know what's going on in his head. You don't know what techniques mentally he's using. I don't know if you guys ever been to an Anthony Robbins, motivational speech of any nature, or if you guys have read books on Napoleon Hill or any of those types of books, which I will always recommend, and we'll talk more about that later on in future episodes. But these guys all have one thing in common. It's about getting your mind right, going within and getting your mind right. And then a lot of these people end up leaving these conferences, taking on the world, getting better jobs, getting raises, getting real estate. Nothing changed except for their mental attitude. And so when you're tattooing and you want to tattoo with excellence, you want to be a Steve Soto, you want to be a Nico Hurtado, you want to be a David Vega, you got to know what's going on in their mind. I've been able and fortunate to have sitting with these people, and I have extracted little mental techniques that they use, as well as myself, and we'll talk about that going into some future episodes. But stay tuned for more of that. Let's get into more questions.
Yep, our brother Scott Croker's got a good question. He's a little confused as to why the shader is listed as having give. Is it not direct drive?
Oh, that's a damn good question. Let's talk about it. Why do I hate give? I hate give because give is not needed. But what I mean by that is adjustable give. Adjustable give. It's not needed. Every machine has give to some degree. Trust me. Like there. So it's not so much that there's no such thing as give. Therefore, I like motors that have no give. No, every motor has give to a degree. But adjustable give, that's a gimmick. That's a gimmick. Anyone that sells a machine with adjustable give is just gimmicking you into thinking that you're buying a machine that's got more features. Well, I'll tell you what it has. It has more things that could break down. right? But in terms of give being adjustable, I'm going to tell you why. I've been tattooing for 27 years, which doesn't mean shit, because that's not where I got most of my experience from. I got my experience from 27 years of listening, seeking advice, building machines, and being able to try those for myself. So taking on all these suggestions and trying them for myself. So my 27 years really means a lot because of what I've been able to extract from my community and be the note taker of it all. And what's that question again, James? I wanted to go a little deeper on it.
It's just basically making sure.
As far
as the direct drive and the
so just to go deeper on that question, his in particular, which will illustrate and explain what I'm about to explain as a general philosophy with that question, this motor doesn't have adjustable give, but yet it has built-in give, and I've always said that. It's got built-in give. The reason why I don't like adjustable give is because that's like having a drop-top car, and it's made for, you have a car that's got no top, and it's great in the summer, but in the winter when it rains, it sucks. The conditions change, it changes that drop top. The conditions of skin change, it changes that last setting of your adjustable give. And then what happens is, let's face it, a lot of rotary users don't know about their machine. Again, that's what I'm here to deliver, is knowledge. Everyone that tunes in is going to become a machine expert in the next couple of years, I promise you, as long as you listen to what I'm saying and try it. But look, each machine, or each motor has a specific built-in give. I'll illustrate what that looks like as I toggle back and forth with different illustrations. But if you guys have ever stopped a motor by squeezing the shaft or squeezing the cam, it doesn't stop right away. It goes, ew. So it gives out. What is give? Give is like when a dam breaks, they say it gives. It's had enough pressure, so it finally broke. So in a motor, it'll eventually stop if you give it enough resistance, right? So again, some motors you can squeeze and it stops. Then there's some motors that you can't stop. It's just too freaking powerful. So as it stops, it comes down to a winding halt, which means it feathers. It's like a dagger stroke. It goes from 10 milliNewton meters to 5 to 3 to 1 to nothing, right? That's when you squeeze it. So when the needle hits the skin, it's giving some resistance to the motor. Now, if the motor starts to drop in millinewton meters, remember how we talked about that earlier? If it's got 10, and as you're grinding in the skin, if the motor only has 10, it can become 98765 with a couple passes, right? Whereas if the motor, and that's only because the resistance of the skin was what caused that motor to sort of slow it down a little bit. Whereas like a packer or a liner, it's got so much power that it generally doesn't stop. It doesn't really stop. It just powers through, right? And that's kind of why people love that part of it. But so what happens with adjustable give is when you have a machine, and let's just say it comes with like 5 different like ratings, like soft, medium, hard, extra hard. I'm not sure how they have it, but let's call it soft, medium, hard. If you're tattooing a guy with weathered skin and you're not an experienced tattoo artist, and your last setting was on soft because you tattooed this premium plush skin that just took the ink like butter and it was just perfect. You love that soft setting, but now you're tattooing some tough skin. It's not going in. You don't know the psychology and you don't know the physiology of skin when it gets hard. Now you're scratching your head. You're blaming the machine. You're blaming the ink, the needles, because all you know is you're doing a similar tattoo, but it's a different person and it's not behaving the same, and you don't understand what's going on. Or for some of you that know that certain skin requires more or less torque, it's about, you don't want to be able, you do not want to be in a position where you have to remember what setting you had it on. And the reason for that is subconscious mind. The subconscious mind remembers everything. It'll drive you home if you're on the phone talking to your girlfriend. You can leave from LA and end up in San Diego, and you might not remember how you even got home. Not because you're drunk, but because you're on the phone talking to your girlfriend and your subconscious mind took you home. Okay? So you really want to, I remember Carrie Barber told me years ago, Franco, it takes 10 times the amount of time to unteach someone's bad habits. I prefer to take on students that have never tattooed before, is what she was telling me when we were discussing apprenticeships. And I totally understood what she meant. It takes 10 times longer to undo those bad habits because they're in your subconscious mind. You end up reverting back to those bad habits. Oh, fuck, I know I'm not supposed to do that. This person just taught me the right way. Fuck, why did I do that? It's because your subconscious mind has already recorded the memory of that bad habit. So you have to do the right thing 10 times. Burn new, pathways in your neurotransmitter, James? What do they say about the brain? You have to it's basically like recording over another record, basically. You have to burn over the other record. Regroove. So you have to do it 10 times perfect so that new memory overrides the old bad habit memory. So when it comes to give, if you learn from setting it from hard to soft to medium, and there's all these different skin tones and different stuff going on, you're going to confuse your subconscious mind. Tattoo's going to take you longer. So what do you do instead? You get used to the give that a machine has built into it, whether it's barely any or a little. In the case of the wand or the shader, it has a little bit of give. You could feel it when you're going in there with a 23 mag and it's on 8 volts and you're grinding. You can hear it back off. It goes like a, so you can feel it sort of giving out. It's going from like a 10 millimeter hit to like a 7 or a 6. And then what happens is your subconscious mind is recording that data, right? It's recording how this machine feels with your hand, right? And so then it doesn't matter what kind of skin tone you get. It doesn't matter what kind of skin texture, hard or soft. At that point, you've memorized what this machine can do, right? There's no confusion, because remember, the machines that have adjustable give, it's your brain going, okay, I know you're capable of 3 or 4 different flavors. What do I do on this person? So you just want to get used to a machine, what that can do for you, whether it be the shader that has a little bit of give. I find that to be a little more forgiving with layering your tones. If you're someone like me, I like to go and build my tones from light to medium to dark when I'm doing a portrait. Whereas sometimes the packer could be a little too powerful and a little less forgiving. But nonetheless, you want your subconscious to memorize that stuff. So in the world of tattooing, you want this to be as flawless as possible. You don't want to have to touch up your tattoos and all that sort of stuff. There's artists out there, and shame on you if you're one of these artists that are photoshopping their tattoos to make them look sweet. Shame on you if you don't understand the psychology of having to keep retouching certain tattoos, but on Instagram they look flawless. There's a psychology. Now, are we all guilty of tattoos that have faded? I know I am. I know you are, right? Are we all guilty of those sort of things? That's kind of how we learn. You look at an old tattoo, come back, and you say, oh, wow, I should have went darker with that, right? And so you kind of redevelop your techniques. But when it comes to give, I strongly urge you guys, whether it's my machines or anyone else's on the market, because there's other good machines out there, you just want to make sure you don't get adjustable give. Totally against that. So if you have any more questions about give, send us a message and we'll get back to you on that. Hopefully that was a good answer for that question.
That was an excellent answer, Franco. Thank you. We've got our brother Jin Dermographics. Speaking of the 23 mag, will we be seeing more of the VINCI V2s in the future? He's been using the V2s for about a week and absolutely loves them. You have some samples right there.
Okay, so thank you for that. Again, these needles were designed by Carlos Torres and myself, 2 tattoo artists together, over 50 years experience, which would explain a couple of my gray hairs. I don't know if Carlos has gray hair. Tom, you seen him lately? He's got gray hair. Huh? Okay. Carlos Torres.
Keeps it low.
Yeah. But gray hair. It's awesome. Anyhow, we've designed these needles to be the first ever tattoo artist owned, right? Tattoo artist owned brand, right? That means tattoo artists are the ones that own the brand. And also tattoo artists created. A lot of these cartridges have been created in factories overseas by Asian engineers, German engineers. Nothing wrong with that, right? Indian engineers. But these engineers are not tattooing. They're not tattoo artists. They don't understand how the needle has to glide against the bottom of the tray. They don't understand how it has to be stabilized. They don't understand how a 1207 mag has to fit in a perfect tray with maybe 1 or 2 thousandths of space. So now, does that mean all cartridges out there suck because they're not designed by a tattoo artist? Absolutely not. There's really nice ones out there on the market. We hope and we think that ours are the best. And the reason why we think that is because we paid attention to the minute details, and that's what we've seen other engineers miss. We've seen them miss the minute details. Our airport hole, it works kind of like a beer bong. It kind of allows more flow, right? So if you're lining, you can pull longer lines. What's different about these is the needles, they're exactly made for that particular plastic body, right? So we don't have, for example, the same plastic body for a 1207 mag, and we don't use that same one for a 1009 mag, even though they can kind of fit in the same tray. No, we spent the extra money and time to build per plastic body, per needle grouping. It just means mold cost tripled, the amount of molds tripled, but again, we didn't want to release a cartridge without it being a superior quality. We didn't want to use the same body that 10 other companies use with our color and our packaging. So when you look at these needles, you'll see the Bishop logo on them, you'll see the diamond. We truly created these needles, engineered them on the computer, changed different shapes. We did it from scratch, from the ground up. So thank you for liking them. And to answer your question, we just got, did it land yet? The air shipment?
I believe so. I know we just had a stock of the 15 up to 15 mag, but then we have the finishing stock coming in. I think it should be online next week.
So online next week, you should see all the way up to 27 mag. Yeah, yes, so sir. Finally they're in. So finally, and I've used a couple of them. The big mags are so nice. They're in. So
fully stocked up.
Fully stocked up. And then we have another big shipment arriving by boat on the 15th of September. So we're going to be fully stocked up next week, and then a week and a half later, we're going to have a crap load more. So it's really been our goal. Just thank you guys all for bearing patience with us. We've been running out of needles fast. They've become more popular than we ever imagined, which we're truly thankful for. But what that's done for us is we are pushing these needles out there, and we're going to make sure we don't run out. So
yeah, Gabe just let us know it's going to be about mid-September.
Okay, perfect. So. Thank you, Gabe. September 15th-ish. Yeah, so let's get into a couple questions. It's 5:55.
Yep, we got actually this one right here. Our friend Jay Franco notices that there's a big difference between running the wand on a power supply and a wireless. I guess his question is, will our wireless supply have a different power push?
Yes, good question. Oh, and I forgot to show these. These are the sample packs. So
we'll come in here
if you live in the USA, send us an email or a message and request a sample pack, and we'll ship them out to you for free. Because that's just the kind of people we are. We'll ship you. I guarantee you're going to love these things. So it comes with a suit. Oh, and one more thing about us. We're known for super fine lines. That's kind of our jam. We're Southern California tattoo artists. So our fine line comes in a 04, which is a 0.17 gauge. We got 06s, 08s, 10s, 12s. Our fine line section is sexy. It's fine. But in this package, we got an 0803 fine liner, a 1203 fine liner. We got a 1207 fine liner, 1207 flat mag, and a 1215 curve mag. Kind of shows off a little bit of everything that we have.
Well, we got some people sending in their messages, so go ahead and send a DM.
Yeah, and also, too, to answer your question, the reason for that is a lot of the power supply battery packs that are out, it's a very poor quality. And so it's not true current, it's not true power, you're not going to have true voltage display. For example, the reason why that is it's basically an inferior, crappy power battery pack. And so what does that do? If you have it on 8 volts, you're going to say, that's weird. 8 volts does not give me the same power as when I plugged it into my Critical or my Mosutoku, which are good power supplies, quality made. So the reason for that is, even though it might say, let me turn this on, not ours, but there's such a thing as, even though it says 7.5 on other power supplies, it could actually be delivering 6 volts. and that would explain why it's weaker. Or you get fluctuations because the current draw is really weak and it's not superior quality. It's not a good lithium-ion battery. It doesn't have good soldering. There's so many things, but this, don't worry, we've removed all of that with this one. This has actually been created. The reason why it's taken so long is because anyone can slap their logo on a battery pack and sell it, which isn't bad if the public knows. And a lot of times it's like, okay, I get it. That's that one battery pack, and that's so-and-so's logo. They're not trying to pull a fast one on me. Like, I get that. He's just selling his colorway or his version. It's kind of the same price. But when it comes to custom high-end battery packs, this is one of them. And I believe this is the first one on the market available. And everything down to the lithium-ion battery is a Tier 1 battery. It's pretty much Panasonic quality. They call them, in the factories, you can get Tier 1, which is the best. You can get Tier 2, which is kind of good. You can get Tier 3, which kind of sucks. There's a price difference, obviously. We've never shied away from paying more, and also not price gouging you guys either. So stay tuned for this battery pack. The crazy thing, and I don't want to make any claims because I don't know what's going on, James. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
Like these on our shader, which is a brush motor. I've had Dennis T-Dan downstairs.
Clocked hours.
Almost 20. And I've been telling everybody like 12, 12 hours. And then on the packer and the liner, people are getting like 10 hours that have tried it out. The reason why that is because the brushless motor pulls more power because it's got more torque. But man, I mean, a lot of people are using this shader here, and you best believe you're probably going to get minimum 15 hours out of it. Crazy. On these things, you're probably going to get 10 to 12 hours out of it. And it's very simple. So that's really what's going on, my man, is for that question is there just hasn't been, I mean, look, China will always beat you to the punch because they have factories and they have access to everything quicker and cheaper. So they can, of course, make battery, and I'm not knocking that either. It's business, right? But they make them fast. So you're getting all these battery packs out there for 20, 30, 40 bucks that are just bad quality. Stay tuned for this. It's in production as we speak. They say it's going to be about 6 more weeks, but the good news is finally in production as we speak.
Awesome, Franco. Well, you guys, we're getting some DMs and emails. Guys, for anybody that's interested in trying out the DaVinci sample needles, send us a DM, send us a messenger, Facebook group. All of that stuff. And remember, everything I talk about, every subject, you can't put all of it into 1 hour. You're going to find throughout all of our episodes there's going to be tons of overlap. I might bring up some give ideas or some give philosophy next week. I'm going to continue to just, have a melting pot of knowledge that sort of spills and spews into every episode. Thank you guys for all your messages. If these are helping you out, please send us a message. Let us know if you guys want to, give us some critique. I'm down for critique. Tell me what we need to hear, not what we want to hear. But hey, if we're doing good by you and you're learning something from it, let us know also. We want to know too. It's our goal, really. It's my goal as an owner of a brand in the tattoo space and being a tattoo artist, that I can share with you a lot of knowledge that will help you be able to use your equipment easier. It's my goal that you guys become rotary machine experts, that you guys understand the philosophy of a rotary machine, of a rotary motor, whether it be brushless or brushed strokes. I want to make you guys experts at all the things that once you know, you'll be able to not buy the wrong machine on accident and waste money. You'll be able to help the other people in your studio as well. So, like always, every Friday, we're going to drop some knowledge. Gobble it up. I wish it was there for me when I was a youngster. That would have been nice. Sure would have been cool. Well, hey, Frank, thank you again for getting over here with us and sharing some knowledge and dropping some truth bombs for these people at home. You guys, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you guys and girls.
Always appreciate it. You guys have a beautiful rest of your week. Keep those creative juices flowing. And remember, if nobody loves you,
I'm ready for you, James.
Bishop and Chuco always got you. And we